The story begins with a young boy named Akiteru contemplating love, muttering to himself that he finds it strange to be mean to someone you like. He believes true affection should be expressed through kindness, thinking that meanness might mean you do not love them at all, though he quietly admits his own understanding of such matters is limited. He arrives at his room to find the door already open and hears loud singing from inside. The noise makes him angry, so he pushes the door open with clear frustration. He sees a girl named Iroha in his room and immediately tells her she is making too much noise and must stop. Without waiting for a response, he moves to turn off the music system himself. Iroha stands up and asks when he arrived, then scolds him for entering without knocking. Akiteru replies that it is his own room and he does not need to knock. He tells her to lower the volume because it disturbs other people and questions why she wears headphones if she does not use them. Iroha teases him by asking if he wants her so badly that he is getting angry. Akiteru strongly denies this, saying he would never want her and calling her crazy. Iroha continues her teasing, suggesting he should have knocked in case she was changing her clothes. She clearly implies he wanted to see her, then asks what would happen if she called the police. Akiteru smirks and says her threats do not scare him, but she teases him further, asking who he thinks a court would believe. Akiteru explains to himself that Iroha is the sister of his friend Azuma. He does not understand why she always acts so clingy with him. Iroha lies down on his bed, causing Akiteru to blush how attractive she looks. She notices his discomfort, then produces a key from her cleavage, claiming it is proof he consented to her being there. Akiteru insists he never gave her the key for this purpose. Iroha maintains that he secretly wants to be with her and will be smelling this bed if she goes out, and he is just making excuses. He firmly tells her to get out of his room, stating he has no such motives. Iroha calls him rude and says he could be nicer, but he only repeats his demand for her to leave and never return. She then claims that since she is his friend's sister, she is like a sister to him too. Akiteru completely rejects this idea. She jokes that if he married her brother, she would officially become his sister. Akiteru tells her he does not want a sister and just wants her to go away. Suddenly, Akiteru's phone rings. He asks Iroha to either leave the room or stay completely quiet because the call is important. Iroha promises to remain silent. Akiteru answers his phone and greets his uncle, whom he formally addresses as president. His uncle remarks that it has been a long time and asks how he has been. Akiteru politely inquires about the job application he submitted. His uncle tells him to relax and call him uncle instead of president. He offers to help Akiteru with the job but mentions there are a few conditions attached. Then, unexpectedly, his uncle asks if Akiteru has a girlfriend, a question that shocks both Akiteru and Iroha. Hearing this personal question, Iroha begins to tease Akiteru by making soft cat noises close to him. Flustered and unsure how to explain the situation, Akiteru quickly tells his uncle that the sound is just a cat he recently took in. His uncle tells him to take good care of the animal before ending the call, saying he has a meeting to attend and will explain the conditions another time. After the call, Iroha lies back on his bed and complains that she is very thirsty, asking for some water. He tells her there is tomato juice in the refrigerator. She thanks him and goes to get it, leaving Akiteru to sigh. The next day, Akiteru is at school. He thinks about how life is unpredictable and believes in using every second well. He finishes both his and his friend's homework, and his friend Ozuma thanks him for the help. Ozuma offers to treat Akiteru to a meal to show his gratitude. Akiteru says it is not necessary, but Ozuma insists, saying he does not know what he would do without his help. Akiteru complains about Iroha always troubling him. Ozuma suggests that Iroha acts that way because she likes him, even that she loves him. Akiteru quickly denies this, saying she just enjoys teasing him. Ozuma says that sometimes girls show their feelings in strange ways. Then, their math teacher Sumire arrives. She starts lecturing to them, behaving like a very strict teacher. After class, a classmate runs to Akiteru, saying a first-year girl is there to see him. Akiteru goes to the entrance and finds Iroha waiting for him with a cute expression. Other students notice her and think she is adorable. Akiteru tells her to stop acting so cute because he knows she is doing it on purpose to make people suspicious of their relationship. Iroha claims she always talks to him that way. Akiteru feels she will get him into serious trouble someday. Iroha suggests that just the two of them should walk home together. Akiteru refuses and says he will call her brother Azuma instead. Iroha insists that it should be only the two of them, claiming they are a couple. Akiteru is shocked and immediately denies they are in any kind of relationship. Iroha then pretends to be hurt, saying they confessed their love to each other just yesterday. She dramatically accuses him of taking advantage of her and calls him a bad person. The entire class is shocked by this announcement. Flustered and embarrassed, Akiteru quickly takes Iroha by the arm and leads her away to a quiet place. Once they are alone, he demands to know what she is talking about, firmly stating he never wanted a girlfriend. Iroha looks at him and says she loves him, and just as he turns to walk away in frustration, she calls after him, saying he does not understand her true feelings. And just when Akiteru feels she might be telling the truth, turning red as he struggles to form a response, she suddenly reveals it was all a joke. She bursts into laughter, pointing at his bright red ears and teasing that he cannot lie about liking her because his body gives him away. Akiteru is left completely flustered, unable to form a single coherent word. Later, Akiteru meets his uncle in a restaurant to discuss the game he developed with his friends. His uncle is very impressed, praising him for creating such a successful game at a young age. Akiteru explains how hard they worked on it and shares their plans to make it even better. His uncle says he wants to introduce someone to Akiteru, but first they decide to order food. His uncle flirts with the waitress, complimenting her hands and asking her on a date. Akiteru is deeply embarrassed by this behavior, though his uncle remains confident she will accept. When Akiteru goes to the restroom, he mistakenly enters the room with broken lock. Inside, he sees a girl named Mashiro in the middle of changing her clothes. She screams in surprise and punches him hard in the face, leaving him injured. Later, back at the table, he learns that Mashiro is actually his uncle's daughter. His uncle reminds him that the two played together as children, though Akiteru has no memory of it. His uncle then explains that Mashiro is transferring to Akiteru's school for personal reasons, and he asks Akiteru to act as her fake boyfriend, protect her from potential trouble at the new school. Akiteru asks why he should agree and what he will get in return. His uncle offers his full support for Akiteru's game project. Mashiro is still furious about the restroom incident, states that she does not trust Akiteru. Akiteru says it is fine with him, and the two immediately begin to argue. His uncle observes their heated exchange and comments that they are already bonding well, a statement that both Akiteru and Mashiro strongly deny. Akiteru meets Iroha at school, where she directly tells him he seems to be acting strangely and might be hiding something. This makes Akiteru wonder how much Iroha knows about his recent activities. She specifically asks about his meeting with his uncle and whether anything went wrong there, but Akiteru quickly denies that anything happened. They then continue to their classroom together. During class, Mashiro gives her self-introduction to everyone. She unexpectedly announces that she and Akiteru are dating. This surprises the whole class, making them think Akiteru is incredibly lucky. When another student asks when Mashiro first met Akiteru, she almost mentions the bathroom incident but stops herself just in time. Akiteru feels relieved that she didn't share the embarrassing story, and Mashiro refuses to answer any further questions about their first meeting. Later, Akiteru explains to Mashiro that they need to act like a real couple because of their arrangement. However, Mashiro remains uncooperative and states clearly that she hates him. She tells him not to look at her or act friendly toward her at all. Their friend Ozuma notices their unusual behavior and asks if they are keeping a secret. Akiteru promises to explain everything to him. Akiteru then reveals the entire situation to Ozuma, explaining that he is only pretending to be Mashiro's boyfriend to secure funding for their game project. Ozuma becomes surprisingly happy upon hearing this and jokes about feeling like a protective big brother. Akiteru finds this behavior unusual for Ozuma, who then adds that he thinks his sister Iroha likes Akiteru very much and considers him perfect for her. During lunch, another student approaches Akiteru. The student mentions that he thought Akiteru was interested in the junior girl, Iroha, but now it seems he has a different girlfriend. Mashiro, who is listening nearby, gives Akiteru a strange look. Akiteru quickly tells the boy that Iroha is just Ozuma's sister and there is nothing going on between them. Mashiro appears irritated after hearing this. When Akiteru asks if something is wrong, she says she is very hungry and demands that he bring her a rice ball. Akiteru tells her to get it herself, but Mashiro insists that as her boyfriend, he should do it for her. He finally brings her the rice ball, but wonders to himself why she seems to dislike him so much. Later, their homeroom teacher Sumire enters the classroom. She asks about the homework, and one student admits he did not complete it. Sumire scolds him harshly and warns that she will beat him if it happens again. After finishing her lesson, she calls Akiteru to her staff room. The other students become worried for him, but Akiteru assures them it is only about a teacher assignment and not a punishment. Akiteru goes to Sumire's office, which contains many old punishment tools. He sits on a chair, and Sumire smiles before kneeling down before him and apologizing profusely. It turns out she is the illustrator in his group for the game they made, and she has not met her current deadline. She makes excuses, saying that as a class teacher, it is her duty to conduct tests and manage assignments, and therefore she could not finish her task on time. Akiteru shows her his phone and says she has started blogging instead of working. Sumire admits that she has to do it for the money. Sumire continues to apologize, and Akiteru points out that she was just lecturing the class about meeting deadlines. Sumire confesses that she only acts strict to maintain her character as a teacher. Akiteru asks to see her progress on the project. Sumire claims she has done a lot, but when she shows him the work, he sees she has accomplished very little. He grabs her and says he will put her in the torturing cow. Sumire becomes scared and begs him not to, saying she is not vibing with the work right now. Akiteru replies that she should have come to him earlier. A flashback then shows how they first met. Akiteru was at an event, upset after failing to find something. He then saw a comic book at a stall and was amazed by the detailed artwork, thinking only a real professional could create it. He asked how it was done, and when the artist turned around, he was surprised to see it was his homeroom teacher Sumire. She commented that this was not the right way to meet, but Akiteru said it was a good way. They also discovered they live on the same floor of the same apartment building, so she could never avoid him. Sumire was upset but had no choice. Akiteru warned her that if she did not want the school to know her secret, she must work quietly and get enough sleep. Sumire misunderstood, thinking he suggested sleeping together, but Akiteru clarified that she should sleep alone to refresh her mind. Before he leaves, Sumire asks if he is Mashiro's real boyfriend. Akiteru explains the deal with his uncle. Sumire apologizes, saying he is doing so much for their team's funding, but Akiteru says it is unnecessary. They then discuss Mashiro. Sumire notes that Mashiro seems to be hiding a secret and isolating herself. She suggests that Akiteru help Mashiro enjoy her school life more. Akiteru agrees with a smile. After more conversation, Akiteru returns to class and invites Mashiro to go home together. Mashiro angrily refuses and tells him not to talk to her. The whole class watches, and Mashiro becomes embarrassed before running away. Ozuma arrives and expresses concern, saying Mashiro is a good girl but has issues. He advises Akiteru to change her negative thoughts about him. Akiteru agrees and asks Ozuma if they can walk home together, but Ozuma says he has work to do and leaves. While Akiteru is putting on his shoes to go home, Iroha appears and hugs him tightly from behind. She says she saw him alone at school and came to him. Akiteru tells her she should stay away. Iroha presses her juicy mangoes against his back and asks if he notices something soft. At first, Akiteru does not understand, but then he realizes with shock that she is not wearing a bra. Iroha laughs and says she knows he has noticed. Akiteru feels scared and embarrassed. Iroha teases him, saying she forgot to wear it by mistake. He accuses her of lying, but she insists she is telling the truth, adding that her buttons are torn and if he pushes her away, her juicy mangoes will be exposed. Iroha tells Akiteru he has no choice but to take her home. Akiteru considers running away, but he fears that if other people see Iroha in her current state, it will cause a big problem. Since she is his friend's sister, he worries about damaging his reputation and possibly canceling the contract with his uncle. With no other option, Akiteru carries Iroha on his back and says he will take her home. Seeing him agree, Iroha feels embarrassed and starts to protest. But Akiteru, already carrying her, begins to run while she continues objecting. After they have gone some distance, Iroha apologizes and asks to be put down. Akiteru sets her down and they have a short conversation. They walk home together and talk about Mashiro. Iroha becomes concerned and asks if Akiteru likes Mashiro. Akiteru denies it. He explains the whole situation to Iroha and she understands. Akiteru expresses his confusion about how to talk to Mashiro properly. Iroha assures him not to worry and offers to give him some ideas. The next day, Akiteru acts like a servant to Mashiro, trying to do all her work for her. Mashiro becomes increasingly irritated by his behavior, but Akiteru mistakenly thinks he is impressing her. Eventually, Mashiro takes him aside and asks if he is mad. Akiteru tells her she does not need to worry, but this only seems to make her more upset. Akiteru realizes his plan is creepy and recalls that it was actually Iroha who told him to behave like a love slave to win over Mashiro. When he mentions this idea to Mashiro, she tells him it would only make her hate him more. Just then, Iroha arrives and comments that they look like they are about to kiss. Mashiro asks who Iroha is, noticing how she and Akiteru argue frequently. Mistaking their bickering for closeness, Mashiro assumes they are a couple and leaves. Akiteru is left surprised by her reaction. Iroha and Akiteru also decide to leave, and they arrive home to find their Mashiro in the corridor. She accuses Akiteru of following her, but he explains that he lives on the same floor. Iroha clarifies that she is not his girlfriend, but more like a sister since her brother is Akiteru's friend. Mashiro questions if they live together, but Akiteru denies it. He then reveals that they are all neighbors. Mashiro lives in Unit 501, Akiteru in 502, Iroha and her brother Ozuma in 503, and their teacher Sumire in 504. After learning about the apartment arrangements, Akiteru goes to talk to Mashiro. She responds negatively and goes into her room without another word. Iroha is surprised by Mashiro's cold reaction. Seeing this, Akiteru decides he must find a way to make Mashiro feel better and improve their relationship. That evening, everyone celebrates joyfully. Their game team, the 5th Floor Alliance, has completed a new character design, and the entire group feels proud. Sumire, the senior teacher, drinks heavily. Iroha gives thanks for being included, even though she is not officially part of the team. Akiteru silently wonders how someone like her, who usually drives him crazy, can sometimes speak so sweetly and look truly adorable. Ozuma praises Akiteru for preparing delicious beef. Akiteru feels pleased and says the taste turned out better than expected. Akiteru admires Ozuma back, calling him a genius and wonders if anyone could ever match him. Ozuma responds humbly, saying talent becomes a curse without proper guidance. He thanks Akiteru for always helping him stay on the right path. Akiteru becomes flustered and says he dislikes thinking about the past. Ozuma then asks about Namako-sensei, their writer. Akiteru explains that the famous writer could not attend due to a comic deadline. He recalls sending a fan letter and a job offer long ago, never expecting a reply, but surprisingly receiving one. Although they never met in person, her letters always sounded warm and friendly. Ozuma calls it a positive sign. Akiteru reflects that most adults in creative fields hide silent stress. Sumire suddenly joins the conversation and drunkenly accuses Akiteru of implying she never works hard. Akiteru becomes confused and asks Iroha what she served her. Iroha explains that Sumire mixed her own drink, likely combining beer with soju. Sumire says she feels too warm and jokingly asks Akiteru to cool her off. Akiteru stops her. Then, Akiteru brings up the idea of holding a welcome party for Mashiro on Friday at 8 p.m. Iroha doubts Mashiro will accept the invitation. Akiteru says he has already prepared a method to make it work. 6 days before the event, Akiteru rings Mashiro's doorbell. She refuses to respond, clearly wanting peace over the weekend. Akiteru tries to explain the party plan, but Mashiro shuts the door. The next day, he discovers the doorbell has been disconnected. Undeterred, he fills her mailbox with handwritten invitation cards. At school, he hands her a note. She angrily throws one back, asking if he enjoys bullying her by stuffing her mailbox. Akiteru denies that and says he simply wants her to attend. She walks away, muttering that she hopes something bad happens to him. Later, he waits for her after school. She scolds him for acting like a stalker. Akiteru insists he only wanted to walk her home since they live close. In his heart, he believes this effort will work. Mashiro changes her route to avoid him, but he still follows quietly. They end up on a quiet riverside path. Mashiro stops and asks why he keeps worrying about her. She believes she can never fit into a group with established friendships. Akiteru asks where else she would go if not with them. He wonders if she has made any friends at school or spoken to anyone else. Mashiro tells him to stop asking so many questions. Akiteru admits he made a mistake during their last dinner. He says he is not asking for forgiveness but wants her to stop pretending everything is fine. Mashiro begins crying and backs away, accidentally falling into the river. Akiteru quickly jumps in and pulls her out. Seeing her soaked, he blurts out that she looks stunning. Mashiro scolds him for looking, then stumbles again. Akiteru catches her and tells her to rest until she regains balance. They both sit silently at the riverbank, tired and drenched. Akiteru jokes that now they look like a couple in matching wet clothes. Mashiro laughs and says it is the worst possible look. Akiteru thinks this moment might be a sign from the universe. Mashiro disagrees and says any god who supports this should disappear. Akiteru still believes that if she keeps hoping she might find happiness. Mashiro says she tries not to expect much because disappointment hurts. She fears that even if people stop hating her, they still might never truly like her. Akiteru says nobody hates her, but people assume she hates them. Mashiro admits she feels scared of being forgotten, like a background character in every friend group. Akiteru understands because he felt invisible before they began pretending to date. Mashiro says that cannot be true since he leads the Fifth Floor Alliance. Akiteru mentions that her father spoke proudly about her. She compliments his creative work and says it sounds amazing that he earns so much at this age. Akiteru says most of the money goes back into game development. Mashiro says he could be popular at school. Akiteru replies that he avoids attention on purpose, since explaining everything about himself would take too long. Mashiro smiles and calls him strange. They walk home quietly. Akiteru invites her one last time. Mashiro says she feels grateful for the invitation but gives no clear answer. When they reach her apartment, Mashiro notices her door open and tells him. He offers to check inside. They enter and she finds everyone shouting to welcome her. She becomes confused, then realizes the room is not hers. Akiteru explains that it is actually his apartment. They use holograms to make it look like her place. Mashiro asks why they went to such trouble. Everyone tells her honestly that they want her to join their group. Mashiro says friendships cannot be rushed. Iroha explains that most of them are not close friends either. Akiteru says nobody is forced to join the alliance. Even Namako-sensei is a remote contributor who has never met them. Finally, Mashiro agrees and says she will join their team starting today. Everyone becomes happy and enjoys the party. Later that night, Akiteru cleans the room alone. But then a sudden noise surprises him. He opens the balcony door and finds Iroha falling in. Iroha remembers how she joined the Fifth Floor Alliance's game project as a voice actress. He welcomed her without telling anyone and kept her role a secret. She recalls that if he had not spoken to her that day, she might never have joined them at all. Akiteru recalls meeting Ozuma during school. Back then, Ozuma had a reputation as a strange boy who always stayed in the science lab doing experiments. Rumors started spreading that his experiments were dangerous, so the school restricted his lab access. Akiteru once approached him and suggested continuing his experiments at home instead. Ozuma asked if Akiteru would actually come to see his inventions. Akiteru said yes and added that wasting his talent would be a loss. From that moment, they became close friends. Both lived in the same apartment building. Since Akiteru's parents worked overseas, he often returned to an empty home. One day after school, he finds Ozuma sitting in the lobby. Ozuma tells him he is measuring tile sizes to calculate how many are in the whole building. Akiteru quickly guesses that Ozuma forgot his key again. Ozuma confirms it. Akiteru sighs and invites Ozuma to wait at his apartment until his parents return. Shortly after, a girl shows up. She is Iroha, his younger sister. Ozuma explains the situation. Iroha asks about Akiteru, who introduces himself politely. Iroha thanks him for looking after her brother. Akiteru remembers this is the first time he saw her face. He never imagined this same girl would later become the biggest trouble in his peaceful life. The next day, at school, Ecchi talks to Ozuma about Iroha. He mentions never seeing her before in the apartment building. Ozuma says she lives with him, but maybe he never brought it up earlier. Soon, a girl named Riku Oto walks in. Other students whisper about her sudden appearance, thinking she was expelled. Riku approaches Ozuma and Akiteru, requesting a private talk behind the gym. They follow without asking questions. Riku offers them lollipops and apologizes for the surprise meeting. Akiteru says he thought she was suspended. Riku clarifies that she was not and never did anything to deserve that. Azuma accepts the lollipop and Riku offers one to Akiteru too. He reminds her she had something to discuss. Riku then asks about a junior named Iroha. She wants to know what kind of person she is. Azuma hesitates. Akiteru finds this strange because a brother should easily describe his sister. Riku says it is surprising that Azuma knows so little about her. Akiteru then asks Riku why she wants to know about Iroha. Riku finally explains. She heard from her junior Asagi Takabana that Iroha wants to join their group, so she needs to understand her personality. Akiteru asks why Iroha would want to join a group known for its bold members. Riku admits that their image often gets misunderstood and asks if Iroha is really like them. Azuma answers no. Riku continues and reveals she already asked first-year students about Iroha. Most said she seems like a normal student. That makes Riku curious because Iroha appears to be hiding something. She hoped Azuma and Akiteru would know the truth. Akiteru asks if she plans to allow Iroha in the group. Riku says it depends, but if Iroha puts in effort, she sees no reason to say no. After the conversation, Akiteru turns to Azuma and asks how he cannot answer basic questions about his own sister. Azuma explains that they hardly talk. Their father passed away long ago, and their mother rarely visits because of work. They live together but do not communicate much. Later, Akiteru asks Azuma if he can visit his place after school to play games. Azuma agrees. Once they reach his apartment, Akiteru notices the living room lacks a television. Azuma says it is not unusual. They head to his room, which looks messy. Akiteru jokes that his room looks like the excuse of a lazy person. They start playing games. Soon, Iroha enters her room nearby. Akiteru quietly steps out and tries listening through her door. She is talking to someone on a call, wondering if she is doing the right thing. She opens the door, she finds Akiteru outside. She almost screams, but Akiteru covers her mouth and begs her not to shout. He promises to leave once she calms down. Iroha nods, so he lets go. Then she slaps him. Iroha scolds him for eavesdropping and accuses him of acting creepy. Akiteru explains that he had no other option. She gets angry again and says she was interrupted during an important call. She hangs up and demands to know why Akiteru acted this way. He asks if it is true that she wants to join the group through Tachibana. Iroha tries to deny it. Akiteru tells her not to lie since he already knows. She argues that her brother's friend has no right to interfere in her life. Akiteru accepts that, but he says watching her walk into a dangerous group without warning feels wrong. Iroha hits back with sharp words, saying she is just a stranger to him. Akiteru realizes she shut him down with pure logic. He explains that Azuma is often misunderstood due to his personality. If Iroha joins a reckless group, it might reflect badly on him. Iroha sarcastically offers to file a complaint against the annoying friend of her brother. Akiteru tries to clarify that he only wants to help. The next morning, Iroha decides to find Asagi Tachibana. He knows she often skips school to perform music. He finds her singing on the street. Tachibana recognizes his uniform and jokes that he must have run away from school. But when he says he needs to talk about Iroha, Tachibana replies that Iroha already told her everything, including the embarrassing part about him entering her room. Before Akiteru can argue, he collapses from the heat. Riku later arrives to help. In the present, Akiteru recalls that day was the hottest day he remembers. Iroha teases Akiteru, saying that he then used Riku's lap like a pillow. Akiteru says he did not, but Iroha tells him she already knows about it. Akiteru becomes confused about how she found out. In another flashback, Akiteru, Iroha, and Tachibana are sitting together in a cafe. Akiteru gently tells Tachibana that she probably has reasons for avoiding school, but he hopes she can try living a normal life. Iroha interrupts, asking why he always interferes. Tachibana also warns him not to pressure Iroha. Akiteru calmly says he only wants her to think seriously. He wonders if running with wild groups is a real goal for her. Tachibana reveals the truth. Iroha's mother controls every part of her life and restricts most activities. Akiteru finally understands why there was no television in their home. He realizes Iroha wants freedom, while still fearing her mother's expectations. Akiteru thinks she needs something to help her change, and he believes he has found a solution. When he returns home, he searches for ideas on his phone. Suddenly, a new thought strikes him. He rushes to Azuma's home and proposes that they create a game together. The next day, the project begins. They plan Karen music and test ideas through trial and error. Azuma enjoys teamwork but fears the game might fail. Akiteru stays confident and believes players will appreciate their efforts. Soon, the first version of the game is complete, and Akiteru decides that Iroha and Tachibana should be the very first testers. They bring Iroha and Tachibana to try their newly developed game. Akiteru tells them that his promise and created something they can enjoy. He asks them to sit and test it. Tachibana becomes impressed by the setup and wonders whether Azuma is a scientist. The girls begin playing the game and the boys explain the mechanics. Iroha slowly becomes absorbed. After their test session, Akiteru asks Tachibana for feedback. She harshly criticizes the music and artwork but admits she enjoyed the experience. She says despite the flaws, the gameplay drew her in completely. Akiteru agrees, saying gameplay is the heart of any game. Even though players know games are artificial, they still enjoy playing. He reminds her of simple childhood games like tag or rock, paper, scissors. Tachibana says she eventually grew tired of those, but Akiteru asks if she still feels that way. She admits she might enjoy them again now. Akiteru explains that simple games with good design and a clear goal remain fun no matter what. He says building such games takes effort. Developers often struggle with code and mechanics, but Ozuma handles those problems well. Their weak point is music, so they need someone who understands audio. Tachibana guesses what he means. Akiteru asks both girls to help with the game's future development. Iroha feels unsure and says she lacks skills. Akiteru tells her that being Ozuma's sister makes her part of the team automatically. There are many tasks remaining. Tachibana shows interest, but says she cannot betray Riku Odo, who helped her a lot. Akiteru tells her that he already got Riku's permission. After thinking for a moment, Tachibana agrees. If joining keeps Iroha away from bad influences, then she feels it is worth it. She encourages Iroha to join too. She says they will have fun building something meaningful. Iroha thanks her but politely declines. She says she does not want to cause more trouble. Tachibana tells her not to act like they will never meet again. Iroha smiles and promises to attend her next street performance. Then she quietly leaves. Akiteru follows her without speaking. At a nearby park, he finds Iroha sitting alone on a bench. She appears to talk to two girls. One of them asks why she ran away from such a good opportunity. The other girl agrees and says Iroha never really wanted to join a gangster group. Iroha says she understands, but she is talentless. Akiteru quietly arrives and hears this. But when he looks closely, he notices no one else is there. Iroha is doing all the voices herself. Akiteru feels shocked by her voice acting skill. Iroha notices him and hides behind the bench. Akiteru calmly tells her he will not say anything. Iroha asks if he plans to blackmail her. He says no. They sit together again. Akiteru praises her talent, saying he truly believes she was talking to others. Iroha says it's nothing special, and as a child, she used to mimic anime voices. One day, her mother saw her doing it and became very angry. After that, she followed all her mother's rules. She created imaginary scenes to cure boredom since they had no TV, but her ideas lacked originalities, so she copied others. Akiteru says that explains why her characters feel stereotypical. Iroha feels embarrassed, but he assures her he admires her skill. Iroha asks if he has acting experience. Akiteru says his mother worked with actors as a makeup artist, so he picked up a few tricks. Then he says maybe she always wanted someone to help her break free. Iroha quietly agrees. Akiteru says he will become that person for her. He asks if she will trust him on this journey. Iroha laughs and says she never expected her life to become so serious. Akiteru asks if she wants to enjoy this journey. Iroha asks what kind of enjoyment. Akiteru says by doing voice acting, the thing she always loved. He promises to help without her mother knowing. Iroha wonders why he cares so much. Akiteru says it is not because she is Zuma's sister. Iroha asks if he will ever quit. Akiteru promises he won't. Iroha tells him to stop calling her Azuma's sister and to use her name from now on. Later, Iroha visits his house. She jokes that he probably wants her for her body. Akiteru tells her to keep her phone nearby in case she wants to call the police. Then he invites her in and shows her some voice training books. Iroha asks if he bought them for her. Akiteru says yes. She begins teasing him again. Akiteru brings her a drink, and Iroha jokes that he might be trying to take advantage of her by getting her tipsy. This irritates him, and he tells her he has no such intention. She quickly apologizes for doubting him and thanks him sincerely. Akiteru says it is normal for girls her age to have doubts. They begin training daily. After some weeks, they visit Riku Aroi, who surprises them with a recording studio. She says her grandparents gave her early access to her inheritance so she can't afford anything. Akiteru and Iroha feel stunned. Riku asks if they will need more voice actors. Akiteru says no. Iroha will do every voice. Riku becomes curious, especially about male voices. Iroha performs a live demo, switching between roles. Riku becomes convinced. Later, Akiteru and Iroha watch a movie and relax. Iroha says she never imagined coming this far. She remembers Ozuma saying that Akiteru feels like a spotlight. Now she understands what he meant. She says Ozuma is happier now because Akiteru cares about his work. Akiteru smiles but finds it hard to believe. He then gifts her a pair of headphones. She says she cannot take them home. Akiteru gives her a spare key to his apartment and says she can use his setup. Iroha smiles and thanks him. Back in the present, Iroha reflects on everything and thanks him. Akiteru says he never imagined she would become so important in his life. Iroha jokes that he must be in love with her. He denies it. Akiteru compliments her voice again. Iroha laughs. He asks if anything has changed at her home. She says no, and her mother still does not know. Akiteru says some people never change. Iroha thanks him again, but Akiteru says if someone understood her fully, she would not need him. Iroha tells him not to push away praise. He should smile and accept the credit. Akiteru sighs and calls her a meddling junior. Iroha then hugs him from behind and says it brings her peace. Iroha asks if he likes it, and Akiteru says he does. She then mentions that a distance still exists between them because of her brother, but Akiteru disagrees and says he never would have met her if not for Azuma. He then asks if she wants to go shopping with him the next day as friends. Iroha becomes happy and agrees without hesitation. The next day, while taking a bath, Iroha thinks about the previous day. She feels shy but confident. She believes even if Akiteru invites other girls, they will say no, but Mashiro will say yes. She becomes certain Mashiro likes him. So, she decides not to back down. Later, Akiteru arrives at the meeting spot and finds Iroha and Mashiro already waiting. Both girls scold him for being late. He jokes that they sound the same when insulting him. Iroha grabs his hand and says it is normal between friends. He says he is not a girl. She says it does not matter. Mashiro then grabs his other hand. She says if it is normal, she will do it too. Akiteru feels confused. Mashiro says she does not trust him and wants fairness. Iroha laughs and calls it a harem. Akiteru asks her to feel embarrassed. She says she only cares that he feels it. Akiteru suggests watching a movie. At the cinema, Iroha and Mashiro argue about which movie to choose. They cannot agree. Akiteru suggests watching separate films. Both girls reject the idea and scold him. They decide on it with rock, paper, scissors, and Iroha wins, so they watch her movie. Afterward, Akiteru praises the movie and Iroha becomes happy. Iroha says she wants to go to the restroom and asks Mashiro to join. Mashiro refuses. While alone, Akiteru asks if she feels nervous. Mashiro says she does not know how to talk to Iroha. Akiteru agrees Iroha is difficult, but Mashiro says that is not the problem. She says Iroha reminds her of classmates who bullied her in the past. Akiteru listens quietly and says he will not interfere but is ready to hear her thoughts. Suddenly, two girls appear and they mock Mashiro for being on a date. Mashiro looks scared. The girls tease her for speaking softly. Akiteru tells them to stop and says they are crossing a line. They mention Anoka and laugh. Mashiro looks close to tears. Akiteru stands and tells them to shut up. They ask why he is serious. He says their faces, voices, and behavior are disgusting. They try to argue back, but Akiteru stands firmly and calls them fools. Finding him serious, they leave. Akiteru then asks Mashiro if this is why she stopped going to school. Mashiro says yes. Akiteru then asks about the notebook, but Mashiro refuses to talk and runs away. Iroha returns and asks Akiteru about what happened. He tells her all the details and then begins searching for Mashiro. He remembers the movie Mashiro liked and rushes to the theater. He finds her watching the film alone. He sits beside her and says she does not look happy. She asks why he came. He says he just came to watch a movie. Mashiro calls him a liar and then apologizes. Akiteru tells her it is better insult him than let those bullies win. He says next time, she should tell them to stop following her if they hate her so much. Mashiro finally shares her story. In school, she had no friends, so she wrote novels. One day, those girls stole her notebook and made fun of her writing in front of everyone. After that, she stopped going to school. Akiteru says novels help people escape reality. Mashiro feels surprised. Akiteru says he admires a writer named Namako and asks if she knows her. Mashiro says she has heard the name. Akiteru says the author is famous for helping people deal with reality through fiction. He explains that many people hesitate to share their work, but their stories still inspire others. Mashiro agrees but says Iroha reminds her of her bullies. Akiteru asks if she means those girls. Mashiro nods. Akiteru places a hand on her head and tells her not to worry. He says Iroha may act wild but is not a bad person. If she ever hurts Mashiro, he will handle it. Mashiro looks surprised. Akiteru accepts it. Later, Akiteru brings her back. Meanwhile, Iroha is talking to the two girls again, pretending to be polite. Then she suddenly changes her tone to one of the male voices and scolds them for bullying Mashiro. She calls them trash and says they ruined a perfect date. They become startled. One girl tries to fight, but Iroha warns her to back down in an authoritative tone. The crowd watches. Mashiro asks what just happened. Akiteru says it was Iroha changing her voice. It worked. The girls begin to panic. Iroha then steps closer and tells them they hurt Mashiro without caring. One girl says Iroha is not even a friend of Mashiro. Iroha replies that now she is. She grabs the girl and threatens her. Akiteru stops her just before she strikes. He tells the girls if they ever come near Mashiro again, there will be consequences. The girls get scared, apologize, and leave. Iroha thanks Akiteru for arriving on time. He tells her not to act alone again. Iroha says she was angry but also proud that she acted. Akiteru warns her not to go overboard. Iroha agrees. Mashiro steps forward and says she just saw everything. Iroha apologizes. Mashiro says she should be the one to apologize. She admits she misunderstood Iroha. Then she asks if they can be friends. Iroha becomes happy and agrees. Akiteru feels glad watching them. Later, Akiteru visits his uncle, President Makoto. Makoto says he heard that Mashiro made a friend and praises Akiteru. Akiteru feels proud. Makoto says that friend is Iroha, the voice artist from Fifth Floor Alliance. Akiteru asks how he knows she is the voice artist. Makoto says Mashiro told him. Akiteru says that it is private information. Makoto says he guessed it long ago. He knew only one voice actress worked on those games and confirmed it through research. Akiteru begs him not to tell anyone. Makoto agrees to keep it secret. Then Makoto asks if Iroha is his real girlfriend. Akiteru says no. Makoto laughs and tells him to take care of Mashiro. Then he warns that if Akiteru ever becomes her boyfriend, he will regret it. Akiteru says Mashiro does not like him that way. Makoto says he is a good boy but still a fool. Later, Mashiro decides she wants to grow closer to Akiteru, so she sends him a message confessing that she loves him more than anyone in the world. Meanwhile, at his home, Iroha is listening to music with her headphones on. Akiteru suddenly raises the volume and she complains, but he explains that the headphones automatically adjust their stereo output. He then checks his phone, and Iroha quietly leans closer to see the screen, and they both freeze when they read the message from Mashiro declaring her love for him. The next morning begins with Akiteru waking up suddenly because Mashiro is leaning extremely close to his face. He tries to understand why she is there, and she calmly explains that she made seafood for his breakfast. He asks her who eats seafood at breakfast. She quietly admits that seafood is the only dish she knows how to cook. Akiteru wonders if something happened to Mashiro, but she only states that she has fallen in love. Akiteru remembers receiving a confession message from Mashiro the previous night, but nothing else. He tries to understand whether he accepted her feelings. Before he can process anything, Mashiro begins removing her clothes and claims that she will show him a dream so intense that he will not be able to refuse her. She pushes him down on the bed and climbs over him. She touches her lips to his, but he finds her lips cold, and then a sudden jolt wakes him up. He realizes it was only a dream. Iroha is sitting next to him, feeding him ice cream with a mischievous smile. Iroha laughs softly and enjoys watching his confused expressions. She teases him about the way he was moving his lips in his sleep and warns him that if he does not wake up soon, she might get naughty. Irritated, Akiteru asks why she is in his room and why she forced ice cream into his mouth. Iroha explains that she simply wanted to try a new method of waking him up and believes most boys would feel lucky in this situation. Akiteru tries to ignore her teasing, but she leans closer in an exaggerated way. He turns his face away, which only encourages her to tease him more. Eventually, he demands to know why she entered his house so early. Iroha casually tells him to look at the clock. He checks and gets shocked to notice that it is already 8 in the morning. He always wakes up at 7, so he is never late. Iroha mentions that Ozuma became worried and sent her to check on him. Akiteru suspects she tampered with the clock, but she denies doing anything. He wonders if it is the weekend, but she reminds him that it is a regular school day. He says he should visit the doctor for a health check. Akiteru remembers that Mashiro confessed her love for him the previous night, and he told her that he needed time. He now knows he cannot avoid the situation forever. The two of them walk to school together. Iroha jokingly asks whether walking side by side is fine. Akiteru says it is not a big deal. Iroha quietly mentions that Mashiro hurt if she sees them together. Akiteru says she thinks too much, but she playfully hints that he might be blushing. He says that being popular is not a bad thing. She mocks him again and says he acts like a celebrity. Iroha then teases him, saying people who stay virgins for too long begin missing important chances. Akiteru wonders where she learned such an idea, but she proudly says she made it up. She comes closer and says that he should practice with her, so he does not lose control during important moments with Mashiro. Akiteru refuses and jokingly tells her to try stealing his innocence while he is asleep if she wants a challenge. Iroha accepts this as if it is a real challenge and mentions her so-called succubus powers. Akiteru immediately ends the conversation and hurries towards school while she follows behind him. At school, Akiteru tries to talk to Mashiro, but she acts cold. She refuses to speak and leaves him confused. He messages her and asks why she is avoiding him. She replies, saying she is simply too embarrassed. When he tries to look at her again, she still acts distant. Mashiro eventually admits that every time she looks at him, she cannot speak. She also mentions that she does not want to be rejected while wearing her plain school uniform, and she has bought a cute dress especially to show him. Akiteru cannot understand what she expects from him. Just then, their teacher Sumire enters the classroom. She announces that the National High School Drama Fair will begin in July, and as the club advisor, she plans to recruit strong members so the drama club can win. After class, Ozuma approaches Akiteru and asks about his lateness. Akiteru explains he overslept. Ozuma then says that Namako-sen scripted her behaving strangely, and a scenario she wrote contains errors. This surprises both boys. Mashiro watches their interaction and imagines something strange between the two, but quickly scolds herself for thinking that way. Meanwhile, Iroha, sitting alone in her class, remembers Akiteru and smiles slightly, but she hides her expression to protect her normal girl image. Then she remembers Mashiro's message and her mood sinks. A girl calls Iroha and tells her someone is waiting for her. It is Mashiro. Iroha immediately switches to her polite tone, surprising Mashiro. Iroha signals with her eyes that she acts differently at school. Mashiro tries copying her style but becomes embarrassed. Iroha finds her cute. Students around them begin staring, so Iroha suggests moving to a quieter place. Mashiro asks if something has happened to Akiteru since he came late. Iroha assures her that it was nothing serious. Mashiro says he is always punctual and mentions that he was late by exactly 16 minutes and 36 seconds. Iroha becomes shocked at her accuracy and tells her to ask Akiteru directly. Mashiro refuses and says she does not want to disturb him. She says she will eat lunch alone and thank Iroha before leaving. Meanwhile, Akiteru is eating alone outside, thinking he missed his chance to talk to Mashiro. Iroha arrives and joins him for lunch. She tries to feed him from her lunch, but he refuses, which frustrates her. Akiteru asks what girls usually think because he wants to understand Mashiro. Iroha listens, but irritation fills her when he talks about Mashiro acting cheerful over text but cold in person. She asks whether Mashiro is the first girl to confess to him. He confirms. She repeats her question, stressing on first time, as inside she feels she was the first one to confess to him long before, but he is too cold to know that. Getting jealous, she accuses him of only seeing quiet, pure girls as worthy of affection, storms off and leaves her lunchbox with him. A sudden announcement calls Akiteru to the student council office. When he enters, Sumire shows him a finished assignment and says she completed it a week early. Akiteru is shocked because she never finishes work on time. She asks for a favor in return. But when he learns it might take time, he says to save it for later since he is not feeling well and leaves. Akiteru still feels unwell and begins to wonder if he is simply wasting time like this. Just then a sound from outside catches his attention and he realizes Iroha is here. He steps out and sees her preparing a meal. Akiteru tells her she does not need to go this far. Iroha replies calmly that he should not push himself and must rest. Akiteru starts to suspect that this might be another one of her usual tricks. Iroha then assures him seriously that she is not playing any games this time. Later, she brings the food inside and sets it near him. She says it tastes really good and encourages him to try it. Akiteru tells her that she should not have gone through so much effort and that he can manage. Iroha reminds him that she is his junior, and this much help is natural. Akiteru says she is overdoing it, but Iroha disagrees. She reminds him that he is the one who always says he is wasting time during sickness, so he better rest and recover. She then tries to feed him with her own hands. Akiteru becomes shy and feels awkward, but he eventually takes a bite. The flavor surprises him, and he quietly admits that it is good. Iroha becomes happy after seeing his reaction. She notices some food on his face and gently wipes it with a handkerchief. Akiteru turns his face away, feeling more embarrassed. Iroha asks if there is anything else she can do. Akiteru says there is no need now. Iroha smiles and says she will clean up and head home so he can rest well. After she leaves, Akiteru silently looks in the direction she went. He imagines her returning and teasing him again, but quickly realizes that it is just his imagination. Soon, Ozuma calls and says he knows Akiteru is struggling. To help him, he has made a machine that checks heart rate to measure stress. Akiteru says he did not need to go so far. Akiteru thinks for a moment but chooses not to discuss Mashiro with Ozuma. He decides to speak to her directly when the time comes. Ozuma senses Akiteru is hiding something but does not ask. He only tells him that he must handle it himself. Akiteru agrees. The next day, Akiteru returns to class feeling healthier. He listens to a voice message from Iroha. She keeps bothering him in her usual energetic way. Akiteru replies that he is now focusing on their 5th floor alliance game to make up for lost time. When he looks beside him, he sees Mashiro typing fast on her phone. He begins to wonder what has upset her. He thinks about directly talking to her and explaining his game work clearly. When he steps outside, Sumire approaches him and asks if he feels better. Akiteru says he is fine. She reminds him of a promise and asks him to follow her. When he asks why, she says it is something important that cannot be discussed in public. Sumire then begs Akiteru to help her save the drama club. She explains that no one in the club is serious, and it may get shut down. Akiteru responds by saying that it may be good if the club closes so Sumire can work more. Sumire then mentions the club president, Midori Keijishi, her younger sister, and insists Akiteru must meet her. Sumire says Midori is hardworking, serious, and cute. She praises her a lot. Akiteru tells her to stop exaggerating. Sumire explains that if the club shuts down, she must coach tennis, which she finds boring and tiring. Plus, she will be separated from her sister. Akiteru says she is acting again, but Sumire becomes emotional and begs. She tells him the principal has ordered her to coach tennis. Sumire says she told the principal that her body might distract the players. Akiteru becomes shocked that she said such a thing. Sumire continues crying and pleading. Akiteru thinks maybe she has a point and starts to consider helping. They argue and Sumire finally says that if he refuses, she will have to stop drawing characters for his game. Akiteru feels forced and agrees. Later, they secretly watch the drama club rehearse. Midori is guiding her team of girls. Sumire asks proudly what he thinks of her sister. Akiteru remembers she is the top student and feels surprised that she still manages to run the club. He asks if they are truly sisters. Sumire says yes and even offers a DNA test. Akiteru finds the rehearsal average. Meanwhile, the girls decide to rehearse in costume. Once the performance begins, Akiteru feels shocked. It starts with music but goes off track quickly. When it ends, he says it was a joke. He enters the room and harshly criticizes the act. The girls try to defend it but admit their struggles. Seeing Sumire, Midori thanks her sister for visiting and encouraging her group. The students ask about Akiteru. Sumire introduces him as a second-year student who has even directed a Hollywood project and says he will direct their play. Midori becomes shocked and says they do not need help from someone who insulted them. She then asks about his relationship with Sumire, reflecting they must have done something naughty together. Akiteru becomes confused and says there is nothing between them. He asks what he would have to do with her. Midori says that their sensei honestly has a very good figure. Akiteru becomes annoyed and walks away. Later, Sumire catches up and asks why he left. Akiteru says he never agreed to produce their play and thinks Midori does not need help. Sumire pleads again and asks if he cannot help them with the script and audio. Akiteru says it is not possible. Inside, he reflects that the voice workers game is being done by Iroha and he cannot reveal this secret. So he replies to her that wasting game resources is not possible. Sumire becomes sad. Akiteru walks away, thinking the situation is not worth the effort. But then he thinks about Iroha. Despite her skill, she never seeks attention. He begins to think there might be another way. Iroha is standing quietly in a corner, looking upset. She thinks Akiteru never understands her feelings. Even when she tries to support him or stay near, he treats her efforts like silly jokes. She starts to believe it is her own fault for always joking around. She fears that Mashiro might take Akiteru away from her. This jealousy grows quietly and makes her more uneasy. Mashiro soon walks up to her and notices something is wrong. Iroha tries to act normally and says everything is fine. Mashiro mentions she is going to the library to return books. Iroha comments that they look interesting and adds she has been reading different genres too. But her words sound awkward. Mashiro notices this change and gently suggests they walk home together. Iroha hesitates at first because she already told Akiteru to meet her later. She quickly lies and says she has a part-time job. She adds that her job involves using her mouth. Mashiro becomes confused and slightly panicked. Iroha realizes what she just said might sound naughty, then offers to let Mashiro try it too. Mashiro quickly declines and says she needs to go home for housework. After she leaves, Iroha quietly watches and thinks Mashiro is lucky to spend so much time with Akiteru. She begins wondering what she can do to make him take her seriously. Meanwhile, Akiteru is sitting alone in the park, lost in thought. Iroha arrives and notices something is wrong. She asks him gently, but he tries to act like everything is fine. They walk together and Akiteru suddenly says he needs to talk. He asks why she is acting like a different person. Iroha replies that this is her true self. Akiteru feels frustrated and tells her not to fake anything. He wants her to stay the same funny person she always is. Iroha explains she has always tried to be sweet and close to him. She does not understand why he seems uncomfortable. Akiteru says he just wants honesty. Iroha brushes it off and says they should hurry before they become late. Soon they arrive at the recording room of Riku Uddle. Akiteru apologizes for disturbing her again. She jokingly asks if he brought payment. Akiteru hands her a luxury cake, remembering how she once said she only works for cake, not money. She is very particular and sometimes even refuses to start if the cake does not meet her taste. This time, she seems satisfied and allows the session to begin. Iroha asks for the script. Riku lightly complains that real voice actors should get scripts earlier. Akiteru replies that Iroha can handle it. Riku agrees she has talent but notices something about Iroha feels off today. Even after 5 minutes, Iroha has not started. Akiteru believes she is reading the script and still trusts her. Iroha finally gets ready and says she will do her best. When she starts, both Riku and Akiteru look surprised, because her voice sounds wrong, nothing like the characters. Riku says the voice is completely off. Iroha feels shocked and says she will try again. She voices different characters one by one, but nothing works. Riku watches carefully, and Akiteru silently panics. He tells her to stop joking and accuses her of not improving. But just as he was about to say something harsh, Riku interrupts and ends the session. Iroha quietly leaves. Akiteru thanks Riku for stopping him and admits he overreacted. Riku says it is not entirely his fault. Riku says Iroha has real talent and warns Akiteru not to ruin it. They also talk briefly about Mashiro. Riku mentions how Mashiro disliked Akiteru at first, but that changed over time. And then she suddenly cuddles him. Akiteru feels nervous. Riku laughs and says it is not a romantic hug. She tells him to listen to her heartbeat. She explains that being close to someone can make emotions overflow without reason. Akiteru confesses he feels confused about both Iroha and Mashiro. He adds that he cannot choose one from those two. He thanks Riku for this small talk, and she tells him to treat her with another cake next time. Not long after, Akiteru receives a message from Mashiro. She asks him to meet her for dinner. At the restaurant, both are dressed nicely. Mashiro appears nervous. Akiteru notices and laughs softly. Mashiro says it is normal to feel this way. They talk about how strange it feels to have dinner like this. They enjoy their meal together. Mashiro says it feels like a couple's restaurant. Akiteru agrees. Mashiro says this is her first time going to such a place with someone special. Akiteru becomes curious about what she is thinking. They talk about love and watch other couples nearby. Mashiro admits she never understood love before it happened to her. After dinner, Akiteru says he needs to give her an answer. Mashiro interrupts and says he does not need to say anything. But Akiteru insists. Mashiro says she already knows he plans to reject her. She figured it out from his message and this lovely dinner. She knows he wants to end things tonight. Akiteru tries to explain. He says he cannot keep pretending and must focus on work. Mashiro says she understands. She believes he is only doing this because he is kind and does not want to hurt her. She says she still loves him no matter what. She knows he never got close to Iroha romantically. He never showed love to anyone else. She wonders how he could fall for her now. She says forgetting him is impossible for her. That is why she confessed. She hoped time would change her heart, but it did not. She says she will wait for him. She believes someday he will return her feelings. She has already taken the first step, and she does not need an answer today. Akiteru stands quietly, feeling lost in emotion. Mashiro then tells him to just focus on his dream. What Akiteru does not know is that Mashiro is already part of the team behind the game. She is actually their writer Namako-sensei, whom he has never met. She says it is time to leave after she walks away. Akiteru checks his phone. There is a message of Iroha. He smiles quietly and says sorry and is her turn, thinking now it is her turn. And that is it for today. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the like button and drop your thoughts in the comments. Until next time.